I have a question that's going to irk Niner fans after I spent the last 6 years trying to get this guy out of town. Are the Niners going to miss Jimmy Garoppolo this season? And by miss, I mean he was the steadying presence in their locker room. He didn't get too high or too low. He had that same smile after every win, every loss, every touchdown, every interception. Looked exactly the same. Kind of an asset in football. The team believed in him, which is a huge asset in football. They knew they could win with him. They don't really know that with Trey or Darnold. And, if Brock comes back, great, but we don't know about that. Assuming Brock doesn't come back, and this is the Trey and Sam show, I think they're going to be looking at Vegas being like,
based on what you said and the kind of the way you set it up, I would say like if Brock Purdy's healthy and Brock Purdy's the guy, then they don't miss him because I think they see
Jimmy
Brock kind of this. Yeah, they see him as being like that steady and influence kind of guy. They feel like they know.
They believe in him. They won playoff games with him. They won 2 playoff games with him. Yeah.
If it's one of the other two guys, then I think there's a little bit more question mark, at least in the beginning, until you start winning games.
Right, because it's easy to be confident when you're 3-4, 3-5. When you have Jimmy there and you've been in the playoffs with him and you've pulled it out, it's like, okay, we can do it now. But like if you're 3-4 and your quarterback's Trey or Darnold, like doesn't a little bit of panic set in? Like, we don't know this guy. And he's not playing so great. Like, because Jimmy didn't always play so great early in the seasons, but it was like, he's going to turn it around. He's done it before. Like, you can't just assume that with Sam Darnold or Trey Lance. All of a sudden, like, there could be some puckering that goes around October. Like, especially if Jimmy Garoppolo's like healthy and playing well and winning in Vegas. Wouldn't that be the end all be all?
Well, I don't know about winning. I expect he's going to play okay out there. He's got something like the head coach out there is a dummy. I think he'll fit in fine out there. But
people just hate him. Sorry.
As far as like you said, yeah. If you get into October and you're 3-5, I think there's definitely a pucker factor. That it was there with Garoppolo.
Definite pucker.
Yeah, definitely. There was a little bit of that in 21 and even last year. At 3-4 with Garoppolo around. So without him, I think it might be a little bit more of a little bit tighter.
A little bit tighter. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like Jimmy, he wasn't good enough. He ultimately wasn't good enough. But what he was a total known quantity. You knew what you were going to get. You knew you could get to the playoffs with him. And now the Niners just have question marks at quarterback, 3 question marks for different reasons. And it must be terrifying. It must have been nice to know, like, hey, all goes wrong. We could just throw Jimmy back out there, go to the playoffs. Everyone looks like it's a successful season. No one's criticizing us. Can't say that this year. Like, there is a scenario where things go really, really horribly wrong, despite having this great team, and everyone's like, how did that happen? Oh, yeah, quarterback position matters, and you blew it. So, I don't know. And then Jimmy's over there in Vegas like, ha, 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 getting the last laugh.
Yeah, it could be. If these guys stay healthy, I don't think you're really going to miss them all that much. But, I do think that there's a possibility of it. And, man, wouldn't it be something if the Raiders turn it around, make the playoffs, and go do really well?
It'd be crazy. Because, again, coming back to the beginning of the show, the reason the Niners gave the public, the number one reason for why Jimmy wasn't good enough was the durability stuff. Mm-hmm. So, God forbid he goes to Vegas, stays healthy, and all these quarterbacks on the Niners get hurt again. Like, that would be really bad for the brand in a lot of ways. So, got to make sure that doesn't happen. Kyle, got to protect your quarterbacks. Otherwise, people are going to eventually look at you as the common denominator. And somehow, year 7, you've escaped all of that. Everyone's in your corner. They believe you got 3 good quarterbacks, and you just got to figure out which one is the best. I'm over here being like, we'll see. But I want to give Kyle the benefit of the doubt because back-to-back NFC Championship games, right? Deserve a little.
Super Bowl or championship game 3 of the last 4 years, and
sure.
If you got,
I'm a little worried that this could be 2020 all over again, but
yeah,
that was just a one-off.
Again, that 2020 would be your starting quarterback get knocked out week 2, and
happened last year,
and not having anybody that's able to step in behind him.
Depends on what you think of Sam Darnold, where Brock Purdy's at. Yeah, it could happen. Or again, Brock Purdy come back, and this is like all a bunch of off-season speculation about nothing. Brock Purdy shows up for training camp, looks good. He's like, what are you guys worried about? We told you I was coming back. Like, I didn't move with arm strength to begin with. Like, I'm throwing 7-yard passes anyway. Like, I'm running towards my target as I throw the ball. I'm shortening who knows? It could be that simple. The Niners almost won a Super Bowl running the ball 4 years ago, and you could argue they would have if they had just kept running the ball. You know what I mean? Like maybe they're the anomaly in the NFL. Maybe they are. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, really quick, in terms of being an anomaly, that's what their new defense coordinator said when we talked to him last week.
They want to be
about, the difficult nature of going up against Kyle Shanahan was his ability to stay committed to the run, which he normally does, like until big games.
Until the very end of the season.
As you pointed out, until the end of the season, when the game's on the line, whether it's the Super Bowl against the Patriots or the Super Bowl against the Chiefs or the NFC Championship game against the Rams, when Kyle's pucker factor hasn't been very good.
Yeah, it's crazy because and that's again the pucker factor. I think is what is the main theme of this conversation. The one thing you got to give Jimmy, did he pucker in the fourth quarter or did he just get exposed? Like I just felt Jimmy wasn't that good. And it would come out in the playoffs because the playoffs are more difficult. And the way Kyle would pucker is he'd be working around Jimmy's, he'd be minimizing Jimmy and winning in spite of Jimmy. And it's like, wow, you're really doing it. You're really good, Kyle. Like, wow, you are what everyone says you are. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter up 10, you're like, all right, Jimmy, it's your time. Like, what? What are you talking about? It's not Jimmy's time. It's never going to be Jimmy's time. It's your time, Kyle. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't understand him.
Yeah.
It's too complicated for me.
Less than halfway, over halfway through the fourth quarter, you're up by 10 with the ball, and just.
Oh, it's not like Debo was averaging 19 yards a carry, or Mostert was. It's like he wasn't averaging 5 yards a carry. It's like,
Right. But the problem was they ran that ball that one time and they only gained 2 yards, and so that meant on 2nd and 8, it just wasn't an option because the defense was showing they were going to stop the run, and they were, we just didn't have enough. They forced us to throw the ball because we can't actually dictate to them. We've got to
right. And Kyle called plays, but Jimmy killed to the passes. Like Kyle couldn't give him 2 runs to check. Like whatever. Whatever.
Yeah, the water carriers for Kyle Shanahan are the best.
They could have won the Super Bowl running the darn ball. That's their identity. They flinched. Hey, kind of like the 2 teams that lost the Super Bowl with 10-point second half leads, Niners and Eagles. Very similar teams. And how do the Eagles flinch in the second half? They stop going for it on 4th down. That's who you are. All of a sudden you're punting. Oh, and you give up a long punt return, right? Because you don't do that. That's what you get. You got to stick to it because you can't beat the Chiefs playing straight up football. They have the best quarterback in the league. What are you going to do? Pass better than them? How? It's impossible. You can't beat them another way. Got to find a way.
You've got to be nearly perfect against them. And
got to be.
You can't give them points on defense and special teams. And
hell no, definitely
on offense and special teams.